I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna. This is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. Today we have Meagan Scheuerman with us to discuss Beaches Music Together, an entity that is geared towards children learning music and the fundamentals and in a very accessible and approachable way. So Meagan, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to learn more about this and why music is so good for kids.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited you invited me.
Has music always been a passion of yours?
It's funny. I mean, always been very musical. I've always loved musicals. I was an actor for many years, and I never really studied music, but it was always like a part of my life. And it just brings me a lot of joy. So like when I became a mom, I obviously wanted to there wasn't too much to do with your kid, when they're itty bitty. And I thought, well, we'll go to a music class. I like music. And so that's kind of how that started, like how my music together journey began. But I mean, I've always sang. I've always been part of choirs and choruses at any chance. I produced cabarets when I lived in New York City. That's awesome. Love to sing. So yeah. And that way it's always been a part of my life.
What makes Music Together unique?
Oh, Music Together, it's been around for over 30 years. It's international. You can find it, I think, in 40 different countries. And what's really cool about this particular program is it's very richly researched. So when my son was born, I would go to different music classes, and there were music classes like in the park. And then there was like a lady on her guitar just singing, and we were kind of enjoying the music instead of singing with her, those type of different things. And, totally. I felt like this is fun, but I could do this on my own at home for free. Like I could be singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and he'll be getting the same sort of impact. So it wasn't until I discovered Music Together when he was about 2 years old, and I was like, oh, I can't do this by myself. Like this, they are doing all this like really cool folk music that, passed down through generations. They're doing stuff from internationally, things in different languages. They are talking about the basic music competency that we are all bored with. And there's all these it just felt to me super fun. Like all of the music was fun for the parents too. And then it just felt, I say it on my website, and it's true. It felt like sneaking spinach into a smoothie. Like, this is so much fun. This is delicious, but we're getting some really good stuff out of this. So when I discovered Music Together, I was like, oh, I want to learn more about what it is that makes the smoothie work. So that to me is what makes it different. It's just a cool, really very, they have so Music Together has a headquarters at Princeton. They have a research lab that they still do classes at. To this day, they are constantly updating and tweaking. And I mean, the collections, there's 9 collections of music. You can take the Music Together program for 3 years straight and never repeat the same collection of music. So you're going to get over 200 songs. And those songs are pretty much, if you took the class 30 years ago, which there are people who take class in 30 years ago when they were babies, and now they're teaching it like that. Cycle has begun. And
that's crazy.
The music is still there. There's a lot of the songs that you would have heard 30 years ago, but they are now too also like tweaking and figuring out how to modernize things, how to keep things traditional, but also keep it relevant. And then also looking at history of songs to kind of see, maybe this is problematic now that we are becoming more aware of, the origins of songs, for example. There's so many wonderful children's songs that are available to us in our cultures that there's no reason to continue to perpetuate maybe something that's problematic. So I just love just the intent of the program. I just love everything about it.
Yeah. So what inspired you to become an instructor and ultimately the owner of this Beaches location?
So like I said, my son was 2 when I discovered it, and I've always been a performer. I had my husband and I had moved to Florida once my son was born, when he was like a year and a half old. And so I had been performing for a long time, but I was like in mom mode, really deep in the trenches of it. And I just felt like Music Together kind of tapped into, I've always worked with kids. Like I've been a teacher in a lot of different ways, but, Music Together kind of fed this, like, I can be a mom and I can do this program and I can connect with these families. And it just felt like a beautiful way to be a part of the community. So when I decided to go for the training, I thought, oh, I'm going to open my own center. I live in Nocatee. There's so many kids here. And we were doing classes out in Ponte Vedra Beach. That's where Beaches Music Together began, that center. And so it was kind of a hike for a lot of us, especially like when I moved here. So when I started teaching, it was 2015, and there wasn't much out here. It's really exploded.
Yes, exploded.
Oh yeah, exploded is a good word. So there's people that are closer now, like in the 20-mile neighborhood or whatever, to get to our other location. But I started working with Leela, who owned the center at the time. And I was like, I would love to do classes in Nocatee eventually. And she's like, listen, if we can find a location, let's do it. You can do it. I'll set you up. She was so supportive. It's such a great supportive community worldwide. Like we have a Facebook group of directors, a Facebook group of teachers. We share insights and tips and tricks and, hey, do the song this way. This was really fun.
That's awesome.
That type of thing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So that's how that kind of started. I started teaching at the Ponte Vedra Beach location. I said, I'm going to help you find some locations out here in Nocatee. There was nothing here. We've had locations in the weirdest places. People are like, I'm like, oh, we have a location here in Nocatee. It's at the pediatric dentistry office. And they're like, what? But I think, we're going to go to the dentist to go to music class. But it worked.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Well, so we gotta do what you gotta do. And Lindsay Maples, who owns the pediatric dentistry out here, her daughter had been taking classes at our Ponte Vedra Beach location. I was like, I'm trying to find something in Nocatee. She's like, we don't have patients on Thursday if you think the lobby could work. And I'm like, yes, anything. So we did it there for a while, for, oh my God, almost 2 years. 2 years? Yeah. But so then anyways, we've been to different locations. Now we're at the Flagler Health Building is this beautiful community space.
Oh, yes.
It's so great. With the Kookaburras downstairs.
Yes. Oh,
yes.
Love that joint.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good.
We love it there.
Different topic,
yeah. Oh, the honey badger. That's what I always get. And the scones. If there's a scone left, I'm getting it.
I love those pies that they make. Oh,
yeah.
Good. That puff pastry, and it's like got so much cheese in it. I'm like, ugh, thank you for indulging me. Anyway, back to Beaches.
But so yeah, the point is when Leela started kind of moving in a different direction for herself, in her life, she was like, you're already running all the Nocatee classes. Like, would you ever consider taking over as the center director? And I originally, when I had done my training, I thought I would like to open my own center. And then I realized, that's a lot. There's a lot I need to learn still to be a teacher, and just wearing both of those hats, I wasn't quite ready for yet. But 3 years later, I was ready. So I took over as the director in 2018, and we still have locations in Ponte Vedra Beach. We have our Nocatee locations. COVID hit, which was its own thing. And then we ended up doing outdoor classes, and those were a huge hit, and we've stuck with it, even though we are back indoors now at a lot of locations. We have Saturday classes at the St. Francis in the Field church that's right over here near Nocatee. Yeah, so we expanded in that way. So that's how it worked for me.
But what I think is great too is like you think in like all these like locations, but at the same time, because it is Florida, like having those outdoor classes, especially like in the spring and fall with like picturesque. I mean, it's January now. I'm like, what's the high today? Like 80 or whatever, something silly.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, why not be outside anyway? You know, it's nice. And before, I mean, obviously not in July and August, but I mean, at other times.
No,
so I think that's brilliant.
We don't do summer classes outdoors. We have a hiatus. But, yeah.
I wouldn't go to it.
No. And some of the days are hot. And then some of the days, like we had last week, the high, I think it was like 43 degrees when I was teaching my Thursday morning class. So it can be cold. But also, I like the cold days because then you can prepare for it. You can dress for it. When it's hot, you can't undress as much. I mean, you could. That'd be a different kind. Yeah, different kind of class.
That's great.
Yeah. I was worried doing the outdoor that kids were going to like run away or like be too distracted and parents would feel like they're chasing their kids or not. But it has worked out. Of course, we have some kids that like to explore, but that's also the beautiful thing about the Music Together program. It's developmentally appropriate in that we know that children need to move. We know that they are still listening. They are still learning. They are still getting all the information, even if they are on the move. And we like to support our parents and letting them know that your child doesn't have to sit here and do what I'm doing ever. This is not a performance class. This is not a product class. This is a process class that they are on record when they're at class with us and they're on play at home. And sometimes kids are on record by sitting and watching. Sometimes they are on record by moving in circles. And sometimes they're in record by doing exactly what I'm doing. You know, it just kind of depends on what their learning style is. And nothing is better or worse than another. So I like that we can give parents that sort of permission to let their child learn in the way that they need in our class.
And I feel like that's becoming more and more popular, like across the board in certain ways. And like my kid goes to a Montessori school, so I really appreciate the flexibility of certain learning processes. Because I mean, I didn't know what kind of learner I was until I was in college. And that was really helpful. Like, oh, I'm an auditory and visual. Like I need to see it and
I feel like I'm still learning what kind of learner I am. I feel like it evolves and it changes too.
Yeah,
and
that's true
being tuned into it is helpful. But if you don't know it early on, then that can be detrimental.
And so I think it's brilliant that you're like, parents get so embarrassed about, oh, my kid's running there, my kid's doing this, my kid's doing that. And you're like, well, nah, they're all doing that. So it's totally cool.
It's kind of what they're supposed to be doing. It's all right.
Right? What does it take?
The way of like sitting and listening, it's not developmentally appropriate until much later in childhood.
Right. That's a really good point too. Kids really are curious and they want to touch and feel. They're very sensory. So it's great that that's built into the program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you know better than I do. You're the one who does it every day.
It's great that they train the teachers to recognize that, to verbalize that to the parents, and to just sort of support it throughout their whole class journey.
What does it take to be an instructor for Music Together?
So you have to do I think it's a 25-hour training course. And when I was back in my day, in 2015, when I went through the training, it was great because it was in person. It was over a weekend, like a long weekend. It was long days. It was intense. And you would attend different classes to observe. You would get all your instruction. So that the training process is quite rigorous. And once you go through that and you go through a testing process at the end, then you are a registered teacher once you start working for a center. And then you can get different levels of certification if you want to go deeper into your research of Music Together or enough of the different, you might focus on the the music side of the program. You might focus on the childhood development side with the different certifications, different projects. So people become certified 1, certified 2. So that's the different training process. And then it's great. And I mentioned My Day because after COVID, they had to amend how they did their trainings. And so they developed an online training process that I took as a refresher course, because you can, once you're a teacher, you can do refresher courses annually, which is great because you are getting so much information during that first 25-hour. It's really good to like revisit it and be like, oh, I forgot about that. Or, oh, I didn't even hear that the first time. Or, there's so much that you're learning. So true. Yeah. So I was curious how in-person versus online was going to compare. And they have done such a great job. It works great. Like, I was surprised at how great it works. I actually have had a teacher now that is working for me who went through the online training process only. You wouldn't know versus if you were in person. So I love, that's the process of becoming a teacher. And I love that they give different options now.
What makes music such a good thing for kids, especially young children, to really get involved with at a young age?
Yeah. So what's awesome is that there's so much happening musically. I always say, especially to my babies classes or parents that start music when their children are in that newborn to, 8-month age, I say, listen, we don't wait to talk to our children until they can talk back to us. We talk to them because we know that they are taking it all in and they are learning and they are absorbing all of that. Now, it's the same thing with music. Music is a language, right? So why are we going to wait to introduce them to music in a music class setting? Like, why would we wait? There's no reason to wait. Because they might be in their receptive stage now and their expressive stage later, but that's happening cyclically, especially up until this age 5, right? So much happens in our brain, going from 0 to 5, right? So the point is, music is so important and we're not waiting around. And I say that, so with the, this is something you learn in your training, with the research that they've done, is that 87% of people are born with an aptitude for music. That means that there's only 13% that aren't going to ever actually be able to get to that basic music competency. Basic music competency is having basic tonal competency and basic rhythm competency. Right. So we're not talking everybody's that takes our program is going to be the next Billie Eilish, and I bring her up because her mom is a music together teacher and she did music together with both of her children. Yes. So it's a really good thing. Yep. You can look it up. Maggie Baird is her mom, and she, I think she owned her own center in California. But all that to say, our children may not go on to that, right?
Right.
But they're going to be able to access music in a way that if they didn't have this type of exposure early in life, might be harder for them to attain. So there are plenty of grown-ups that come to our class and they're like, I'm not musical. I'm like, let's find out. And then they start to take class and they're like, oh, I have rhythm. They don't know that they do, but I like to say this is going to give you your child a chance to feel comfortable in a musical setting. And whether they decide to pick up an instrument in their life or just go to a wedding one day and dance on the dance floor, they're going to feel more comfortable with music because they've been exposed to it in this way. So I say if your child grows up in a bilingual household, and even if they don't end up speaking bilingually, there's plenty of people who are like, oh, my mom spoke to me in Spanish all the time and I don't really know it that well now. I wish I was more conversational. They start to take a class and they pick it up a lot faster than I'm going to pick it up.
Right.
Because it's in there. We're building those neural pathways at this stage of development. So it's such a gift to our kids.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Not even just thinking about musically what's happening, but if you're thinking about the relationships that are happening, if we're going to go back to the social side of it, one of my favorite things that I like to tell people is that I was listening to I think it was a podcast. I think it was definitely an NPR show, and they had a woman on, and she was talking actually about dementia. She was she was a neurologist, and she was studying dementia, and she was studying dementia because her mom had it, her grandmother had it, and she will likely have dementia one day. And so they asked her, well, what are you doing to help your family when that time comes? And she said, I'm making playlists.
Oh, wow.
The part of your brain that stores music was built to last. So if I ever need to come back to my family, they can play my favorite songs and I'll be there.
Wow. That's powerful.
I'm like, I get chills every time I say it, because the things that we're doing now with our children are going to be there long after we're gone.
Yeah.
And we're doing that with music. You see these videos all the time that go viral of when grandma has Alzheimer's and here she is playing this beautiful piece of piano music. She has, and you're like, how do they do that? You know, but it's there. It's always in your brain. And that for whatever reason, that's part of our memory that doesn't go away. So I think it's just a gift to give our children.
Interesting.
So.
Ooh, that's really cool. Now, this is one of my favorite questions to ask moms who are also entrepreneurs. What challenges have you faced as a business owner and a mom? Bum, 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 bum.
So it's interesting because I never really think of myself as an entrepreneur, because I just think of, I really like this program.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm good at it and I'm going to do it, not like I'm going to go out to build my business and in a way that I feel like maybe some other people do with their businesses. I feel like I've been really lucky in that I did take over an existing center. I haven't had to do tons of marketing. People tell their friends and our classes fill up, and it's like one of those type of situations. As far as challenges with motherhood goes, I find for me, I really like to respond to emails in a timely fashion. I've had to put some limits on myself of like, okay, once the kids are home at 3:00, like the emails can wait. That type of thing, because I'll start to respond to people and then they try to talk to me and I start snapping at them. I'm like, it's not their fault.
Right.
This is their time now. And honestly, my daughter is in first grade. So when I took over in 2018, she was 2. So there was a lot of times where she was home and I felt like I was maybe focusing a little bit too much on the admin side of things. She used to come to classes with me. I'm really lucky in that regard of she came to classes with me from the time she was born until she was about 2, because that's when she started to get really jealous when I was singing to other kids and not paying any attention to her.
So funny.
And so it became a little distracting for me, and I didn't feel like that was fair to other people. So then she got to hang out with a friend and do art, and that's what she did while I was doing classes. But this particular business is built for parents, so I can also, once I give myself my guidelines and my boundaries of, all right, Meagan, you need to look away from your phone and don't respond to that email. It can wait. It can wait. It can wait. That I've been able to kind of work around that a lot and kind of be there for my kids in a way that maybe a 9-to-5 wouldn't always allow. So,
yeah. But I think that's a really good point, because I feel the same way and I try really hard to compartmentalize things, but I'm also the type of person, and I don't know if this resonates with you, where if I see something, it's got to be like ADD or ADHD. It's just like not diagnosed or something. Like if I don't do it in that moment, I'll forget about it. Like I had a text from like the PTO president the other day, and I read it while I was driving. Like it popped up, and so I marked as read, and then I didn't respond to her until yesterday. And I was like, oops, like crap, like and so that's what I find hard is like if I see an email or a text come through, or have to do this, if I don't do it, I forget about it. But then I'm like, to your point, it's like, well, it's 3:00 and my son's home, and maybe he needs to have that, 10-15 minutes of connection with mommy time, but my brain is so distracted that I'm like, like, where do I show up? Where do I show up?
It's definitely a learning process for me. Like I have to keep everything unread in my inbox. If and I'll read it. Yeah. I'll read it real fast and be like, ooh, I need to respond to that later. And let me mark it unread, because otherwise I will forget. And then it'll get buried. And then I'm like, oh no, I didn't get back to this person. And really, I took over 5 years ago, and I had been doing all of my registration. Everything was done manually. So I had like a spreadsheet, and I would respond to people, and then I would plug in all their information I need on this other spreadsheet, and it was fine, except for we've grown a lot since I took over. And so now I'm like, this is unmanageable. And this is the first semester where I've been using a back office system on my,
you automated.
So I automated, and I have never done that. And it is working out a lot better as far as my time management skills go.
Yeah.
For when do I dedicate to music together, and when do I dedicate to mom life? That's been helpful. So I was very hesitant to pay to a service that I felt that I could do on my own. Right. But now I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? This is worth it.
The admin just takes so much effort, I'm a one-woman show. So who puts all my stuff in my calendar? Who uploads the links? That's all me. That's all. I literally spent Thursday afternoon sending out links and updating calendar invites. It's like 3 hours of time.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. Yeah. Well, there's any way
to find a way to automate,
which you've done a bit, it's
trying.
I'm still figuring out the system too. So that's the other part of it where I'm like, oh, I don't know how to make it automatically prorate if you join late. So how am I going to have to do that manually? So I'm still those little things, that's something that came up this morning, and then I'm like, okay, I have to have my paper checklist with my to-dos. And if I don't write it down, it'll be gone. Because it's the same. How do we juggle anything?
I'm the same way.
There's too much. There's too much.
I got to write it down too. I'm right there with you. But that's the other thing too. Is sometimes I feel like the automation process is supposed to save you time, and then you find another glitch, and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. But then once you set it or figure it out, then you don't have to put that time and energy to redoing it again. It's in there and it's set
up. That's what I'm telling myself.
Once you put the
at least
blueprint down, it's done. Thank you next. Yeah. Is that what Ariana Grande says? Well, now I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because I feel like this is such an important topic. But you've written a book called Babies Are the Worst, a memoir about motherhood, PPD, and beyond. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience with postpartum depression and that entry into motherhood? Because I feel like it's such an important thing for new moms to understand.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had my son, and it took me almost a full year before I realized I had postpartum depression, because I didn't have the tools for understanding how it shows up and how it can look different than the stigmas that I've seen in media. And also there's a lot of shame involved, and that still happens. So I didn't recognize it. Yeah. I didn't recognize what was happening with me, for a year. And the title of my book, Babies Are the Worst, is because that's something I kept thinking over and over and over again. And I'm like, God, this is the worst. Babies are the worst. And I was like, I never in my life thought that. I freaking love babies. If you see me around babies, like you would never in a million years, because it wasn't me. But I didn't know that that's a sign of depression. Like I had no idea these different things. So I decided I'm going to write about my experience, because the more I spoke to people about it, just friends that were kind of going through the same things as I was, or people that I had met along the way, it just is so much more universal, and it's so much more prevalent than people realize. So, and the only book that I knew about when I wrote my book, was Brooke Shields, because she had her first viral moment before there was internet, right? With Tom Cruise was on Rosie O'Donnell, and he was calling Brooke Shields like a bad mom and a terrible person and doing all this stuff. Do you remember this? This was like in the 90s, because she had written this book about how she had postpartum depression and she took medication and it really helped her. After a year, I kind of like the light bulb went off for me. And one of the things was reading Brooke Shields' book, and it was the only one that I knew of. And I was like reading aloud lines to my husband. I'm like, oh, I feel this exact same way. And I thought for me, I had a traumatic birth experience. I had a unplanned emergency C-section. I thought after pushing for 7 hours, let me tell you, my body was wrecked. Yeah, 7. They don't usually let you go over 4, but that's in the book. It's in the book. But all that to say, I thought I just needed to process this first month that was very, very dark for me. And now I'm like at month 11, right? Postpartum.
Okay.
I'm like, I just need to go. I need to talk to someone. I need to figure this out. And we started talking, and the floodgates were open. And she was like, and I went to a psychologist, and she's like, I think you need to see a psychiatrist in addition to me, because I do think medication would be beneficial. And she can't prescribe medicine. So I was like, that's all right. I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. She's like, just make the appointment. You can just go to the first appointment and you can decide. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do and that you're not comfortable with. And I kind of had a bit of a breakdown around Christmas when I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that appointment. And I ended up keeping that appointment and then getting the help I needed. But it was a journey. And you know what's interesting, and one of the things I think about Music Together that makes me so passionate about the program is I do think, had I had a different sort of community support, if I had 2 very dear friends who were kind of in the same boat as me, our kids were the same age, but that was it. I knew no one else. And there wasn't like a community that I was a part of that I was living when I was living in Los Angeles, because I had I was the first of my friends to have a kid. My son turns 10 this month, and I have some friends that are having their first child now, so it's like, I was a little bit earlier in as far as that goes. And I was like, I felt very, very alone. And I feel like with Music Together, you go somewhere once a week, you meet other families that have same age kids as you. You naturally start to talk to one another. You hang out after class, and then you're like, oh, I have that diaper bag, or, like you start talking about random things, right? You start to connect, and then you build a community. And I wonder, had I had that, something like Music Together, would my story have been different? I don't know. And I won't know. But my favorite class to teach in Music Together is my babies only class. And that's for 8 months and younger. The youngest child I had in my class was 3 weeks old. So I know, just a little bubba. And there are tons of things that are happening musically early on that if you know to look for it, and you have a trained teacher that can tell you how to support their musical growth, those things are happening. But you're also like going somewhere once a week. You're with other people that have child the same exact age as yours. And in the babies only class, we have more time to talk. It's not just 45 minutes solid of music so that the toddlers keep engaged. And I just like tell you a little something about parent education before I move on to the next song. In a babies only class, we're sitting in a circle. We're like, let's tell me something new with your kid this week. You know, like, and it just sort of opens up dialogue and discussion in a way that our mixed staged family classes don't allow for. And so I think with my background of having gone through postpartum depression, I think that whether you ever are clinically diagnosed with anything or not, that transition in that first year is hard. And it's hard for everyone. Absolutely. And it's hard because you're exhausted, and it's hard because you're hormonal, and it's hard because you have this new person that you're caring for, and you yourself are a new person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just love that Music Together kind of gives this opportunity for parents to come together at that early part of motherhood or parenthood, if it's the father. But
well, yeah. And I think that's a really good point, that just to drive it home a little bit, is that when you become a mom, especially for the first time or even second time, third time, doesn't matter. Like, you're a different version of yourself than you, and you'll never be the same person again. It's very different, physically, mentally, emotionally, like hormonally. You're a different organism. And a lot of times, like, we think, you know, there's all this information out there, and that's kind of like where this podcast came from, but sometimes it's just not good information. You know what I mean? And sometimes you want to know if your baby's, like, you know, hitting those milestones and doing this thing, or like, but, you know, then it feels like you're comparing to other moms and other babies, and then that feels like a competition, and you're just like, it's like this overwhelm, and it's hard to find, like, your people that can help you grow in a productive and wholesome manner, and help you identify things that you didn't know were signs or symptoms or even an issue. Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, they don't understand that, or we're not really educated about that postpartum depression or anxiety or whatever it is, it can hit you anytime in like the first couple years. It doesn't have to be 6 months or 3 months later. It can be when your kid's almost 2. It can be when your kid's 18 months. It can be at their first birthday party, you know, and understanding that and knowing that other women have gone through it, or there's somebody out there who can empathize with you, I think is really important. Or just to say, hey, like, you are like, this is the red flag I didn't know. So here, me giving you this little piece of information that might help you skip that process or get help sooner. Or, you know, maybe you'll go to that appointment faster than I did because you've heard my story. And I think that's why it's so important to share our experiences and mom lives, and do it through like the lens of like education and empathy and compassion. You know, I think it's so important because we can learn so much from each other without being, that my way is the only way. Because we all have a friend or know somebody who thinks that their parenting is the best thing ever. And you're just like, okay, well, my kid's not your kid. And you don't have our life. So maybe that worked for you, but it doesn't work for me.
Good for you, not for me, as Amy Poehler would say.
Exactly. But
have you read
it's
her
good that
memoir? It's really good.
No.
That's one of the things she says in her memoir.
Reader. Isn't that terrible? I am a writer. I am the worst book reader.
Oh, that's so funny.
Isn't that
do
funny?
Audible? Like, do you listen ever? Or you just like not? You're like, moving on.
I find it really hard to sit and read unless it's like a magazine article. I don't know why. I actually just bought a book. I'm like, okay, you're going to try to read one book. Unless it's a script. All behind me is like all my scripts from college that I've never gotten rid of as a theater major. And so if it's
I didn't know you're a theater major. Oh, that's so cool.
Theater and journalism. So I've always been a reader and writer. I mean, I've been a writer and like a performer too, but if it's not a script, like I can't get behind it. Like, but here, read my book. Oh man. So I think it's great that you're sharing your story and that people can get out there. And I mean, I think the title's hilarious too. Babies are the worst, because I mean, I called my son for the first like year because I breastfed for like 13 months or whatever, I was like, he's just like a leech. He's just like sucking the life out of me. He's just a little parasite. Yeah. And that's not a really popular opinion, but it's also kind of true.
So my book came out in 2018, right when I took over for Beaches Music Together as the owner. Mm-hmm. And so it's been in the world for 5 years now. And so I've gotten interesting feedback. And what I find is, like, if I've been at like a book festival or a book signing or something, and people aren't familiar with it, they're just like kind of like, coming along, and I get to see their real live, like real time reaction. They're like, babies are the worst. It's either that or babies. Yep. I get it. They get it.
Yeah.
And I find that it's like either people who don't have kids are like the shock and horror, or right. the people who have maybe they're a little bit older, maybe it's been a while since they've had their children, and they're like, oh, that's not true. Babies aren't the worst. I'm like, well, you forgot.
Well, they kind of are. They kind of are. I mean, they're great. There's a reason why they're cute. Well, I was just saying this the other day to someone. You have to find your kids cute. It's the only reason, like, you get through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is too, as I saw recently, someone said, babies get a lot of the blame, but the real blame is, we want to get into it. We don't have to, but it's the support for mothers. Is that we don't have the support we need in order to take care of our children. So it's not that the babies are the worst. It's that the support system and the societal impact and like all these different, we don't have to get into that, but it's true. It's really, in our society at this point in time.
Well, we've got away from that kind
of a different way.
That community based thing. And like before, you lived next to your parents or in the same house and I couldn't imagine that as my reality personally, but like, I see where from that, like, tribal mentality, like I'm Scott, Irish, and Italian, so we were clans, we were very tribal people, like historically, right? Yeah. So why that worked and the setup was there, and we've moved away from that, and now we're trying to find our communities and build up from there. And then our resources, just because of technology and the way things have changed so drastically, like, where does that leave most of us? We talk to each other through a computer. We can do all of our work remotely. We're not in the fields, and we're not like using our hands to like produce anything. And then we wonder why, there's all of these things that happen. Well, after the generations, like that, now we're in this is our new reality, right? And how are we supposed to navigate it sometimes? And what worked for our parents, for my mom and my grandma and my great grandma and yours as well, doesn't necessarily resonate today, even though you do need that community and you need that support, but it's so difficult to find. And you layer the fact that women actually work outside the home now, which wasn't a big thing until World War II. And we have independence, and we can actually have a credit card and buy a house now, on our own. No one's got to.
That was the 1970s. 1970s.
I know.
That was like when that started. Like,
that's only 50 years ago. That like only 50 years ago was that, like, did we get that right, if you will? Oh, I'm on a tangent now.
Oh, listen, I'm right there with you, because.
And we wonder why we don't feel supported and we don't have things done. And we feel the need. I feel like it's just like now in like my generation, like, my husband makes me coffee. I don't make him coffee. My husband does a school run too. He's not a babysitter. Yeah. He's a father, and he shows up for his son. That's what it is. And before it was like, oh, mom this, mom that. And now we're like, no. We're CEOs. We're mompreneurs. We're business owners. We are creatives. We're intellectuals. Like, this is not just the mom show. It's the parent show. So let's go. Whatever your parental setup looks like, it's the parent show. Yeah. I digress. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was super interesting. I heard recently, and they're talking about evolutionarily, like why do women live so long? Because once we go through menopause, we no longer can reproduce. So most creatures, evolutionarily, once you can't reproduce anymore, you're done. Like, that's the end of your lifespan. So why is it that human females continue to live? And it's the grandma theory. So evolutionarily, we've needed caretakers, and grandmas we're able to help. Men can reproduce until the day they die. Doesn't matter how old they get. Women can no longer produce their eggs. And so why would we keep living? We shouldn't. But grandma is needed.
Wow.
That community is needed. We worked in those clans to help raise our children. And now we don't have that. So now we're going through some sort of other evolutionarily a shift. Like we need to figure out where do we go from here. So
Ooh.
Not that we're going to start dying out. We're still going to.
Oh, this is a good topic to launch into. I'm in another podcast, but that's really didn't even think about that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I got to let that marinate for a minute. I'm going to take it back to beaches because I want to know how beaches has grown and evolved in the years since you decided to partake in it.
Oh yeah.
Talking about evolution.
Talking about the evolution. Let's talk about the evolution of my center.
See what I did there?
So actually,
see what I did there?
That was really good. That was a really good. Bringing it back. So Music Together, like I said, it's been around for 30 years. Leela started Beaches Music Together 15 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
This year, which is crazy. We're celebrating our 15-year anniversary. And I started working there in 2015. And I took over as the center director in 2018. So that's been 5 years for me. All of her classes were done only at the Christ Church in Ponte Vedra Beach. When I started teaching in 2015, that's when we started to bring classes out to Nocatee. And then I also did classes down in St. Augustine, just so that we could sort of serve more families. There were people coming from St. Augustine to do our classes. And I'm like, well, I'd love to do something closer. So all that to say, I don't know the numbers of families that were enrolled, but it was limited when it was just in one location. And now that we have more locations and more opportunities for people to take classes, we are like right now we have our winter semester. We have 130 families enrolled. I think it's 155 total children because, there's a lot of siblings that come. So it's been really interesting and wonderful because our classes are full. Like I wish I could offer more than I do. And I'm training. We have an apprentice teacher right now who wants to do more classes up. Yeah. At Ponte Vedra Beach. She was trained a couple years back. So now I'm like, well, why don't you do an apprenticeship for a semester, kind of get back into the groove of what's expected of like what classes are, and have that support from another teacher. So that's really great. We have a new teacher. It's a man, which I think is such a fun, usually it's been only, since I've been working, it's only been women who are teaching. Nice. So I love having a dad. He took classes with us in my classes. And then I was like, what's your deal? Because you're really good. I need to know what your background is. And would you ever want to teach? And the answer was yes. So that's awesome. It was really cool. So he started teaching for us. And then I actually have another parent who contacted me just this past Friday who's like, I really want to do the teacher training. I would love to teach eventually. She just had her second child this past year. So she's not quite ready to like open her own center or do her own thing yet. And I'm like, I think it's such a testament to this program once again that parents take the class and they're like, I want to do this all the time. This isn't just, I'm just showing up once a week with my kid. People really love it. We have families that have taken classes with us for years. So I told you in the beginning that either 9 collections, you can take music together for 3 years without ever repeating a collection. We have families that have done all 9 collections, are doing them again now with their children who have been born since they started. And it's just, I think that's such an amazing testament to the program, to this center, that they want to keep coming, that they think that this is valuable enough to bring all of their children and come here once a week and just do this class over and over again because it's fun and because they're getting something out of it. They're seeing something positive at home as a result. So I think that's just like a real awesome thing to be a part of.
Yeah, something to be super proud of. So where can people find out more about Beaches and the classes that you do offer?
So we are doing classes, or I'm sorry, another text came through. I don't know how to turn it off on my computer.
You're fine. You're fine.
I thought that I did. And
Squirrel. Butterfly.
Squirrel.
Tree.
beachesmusictogether.com. So that's just the name of our center, beachesmusictogether.com. You can go there. I have an automation service now where you can just sign up for classes right online. Hopefully it works. And we're on yeah. I'll go in manually and fix it. We're on Instagram. Okay. I post to that a lot, which is linked to our Facebook. So when there's new signups happening or anything like that, you can find out through social media. But we also have an email list. So if you want to learn about when registration starts, we run on 10-week semesters. So, and because our current families that are enrolled have a priority registration, our classes fill very quickly. So it's one of those things that if you're not on that email list, you might not get in. Yeah. So you want to be on that email list so that you're not waiting until it's announced on social media. Because, by then most of our classes are full, which again is such a great testament to this program. So
good to know. Good to know. Is there anything we haven't covered about Beaches Music that you like to touch on?
I want to brag about my teachers really quick. So,
Sure.
So it's not just me. I'm teaching in the Nocatee location on Thursdays and Fridays, both indoors and outdoors. I do both. But I have 3 teachers who work for me currently. Amanda, who is our Ponte Vedra Beach teacher over at Christ Church. She was my first teacher, like when I took the class with my son. Yeah, so she's been teaching longer than me, and she's fantastic and wonderful. Stephanie, who I'm really sad because she's moving this summer because she's military. So we're very thankful for her family service, but I'm very sad to be leaving, that she has to leave us. She is amazing. She's a Cert 1 teacher. She's what's the word I'm looking for? She's a very accomplished pianist. Like she's like a professional. Oh. So, she has such a great musical background. She's just finishing up her master's degree in music education. She's just a gift. We love Stephanie. And then Anthony, who is teaching our Wednesday and our Saturday class. He's our dad who just started teaching recently, but like already has his groupies, it's just like people are like, I want to be in his class, because he's just so much fun. And he's got his 2-year-old Theo who comes to class and he's in the thick of it right now, where that's kind of where I was when I started, right? Like my kids were 2, my daughter was born when my son was 3.5. So I have been teaching when I'm right in that same part of development as the kids who are taking our class. So I think that's such a benefit to have from a teacher and a parent standpoint. So all of our teachers are super fun, and you just really can't go wrong. And it's really fun also for families to find who they connect with and who their child responds to, or whatever it is that works for them. Everyone's just different enough with our personalities, but we're all trained in the same way. We're doing the same music. If you miss a class, you get to go to a makeup class, and then you get to experience another teacher, whatever it is. You can't go wrong. Right? I really think so.
That's incredible.
And then our apprentice who will hopefully be teaching soon. So if I can open up some extra classes down at our Ponte Vedra location. So that would be good if she can start teaching for us sooner than later. We get more people in. I feel bad on these wait lists. I'm like, I wish I could get you all in. And I'm not saying that from a business owner standpoint. I'm saying that as a mom and as a human. Like, I don't want anyone to miss out on what we're doing. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's great that you have such a dedicated team too, who's like all about it. And some of them have gone and then turned into teachers. That's incredible. So I think what you've just been saying the whole time is such a testament to the whole program that is based in research. It's accessible for people. For new parents, it gets you out and about. It's something to look forward to every week. I think all of those are brilliant things. But Meagan, thank you so much for your time. Meagan Scheuerman, director of Beaches Music Together in Ponte Vedra. You can find them at beachesmusictogether.com or on Instagram. And until next time, I hope everybody has fun learning things you didn't know you needed to know.